Good afternoon. And so I'm the session, I guess, monitor, moderator, whatever you want to call me. And it looks like, Jeff, if you can hear me, you're not in here as a speaker. If you are in here, you're as an attendee. So to get in here as a speaker, what you need to do is go back to your main Excel events page. And on the left-hand side, if you scroll down, it says My Speaker Schedule, and enter this meeting through the My Speaker Schedule tab rather than through the regular schedule tab. And that should bring you in as the speaker so we can get going.
Okay, thank you, Kurt. And I am Julie Jordan. I work in the front office of the Enforcement and Compliance Assurance Division at EPA Region 9. And I'm doing this presentation with Jeff Biakeddy from the Navajo Nation. So we'll be talking about an investigation that Navajo did, and then Region 9 took the product from those investigations and did an enforcement action based on that. So hopefully we get Jeff in here soon. And oh, there's Jeff. Yay, Jeff. So one happy to see you, Jeff. One other thing that I would ask is we both have presentations and we want to be able to get through both of them, and we only have 50 minutes. So we're going to hold all the questions until the end when we're both finished speaking. That way we'll be able to hopefully address all of them. So Jeff, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yes, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Jefferson Biakeddy. I work for the Navajo Nation EPA Pesticide Program through a cooperative agreement with USEPA Region 9. I work as a compliance officer and investigator and so forth. Today I'll be sharing with you my experience in doing hemp farm inspections and investigation here on Navajo.
So I am going to share the presentation. Hopefully this works. And then Jeff, you can just tell me next slide and so forth.
Okay. That'll work.
Okay. So can you see the presentation, Jeff?
Yes.
And Kurt?
Yes.
Okay. Very good.
Okay. Well, actually, this was for, I wanted to do the uses for the presentation. So I did that, but I can talk a little bit about the slide here. This is at a site called a 32-acre farm in a place called Hogback, New Mexico. It's just right near the small town of Waterflow, New Mexico. It's where it connects to, state land. So you can continue on with the next slide. Okay, our program, we promote safe use of pesticide here on Navajo, I guess, to protect human health, public, and the environment. And this program has been in operation since 1985, as I was informed. Okay, next slide. Okay, how does hemp situation arise? I guess it started back in 2019 very slowly. And all of a sudden, last year, the summer of 2021, in the midst of the pandemic, there was like full operation of hoop houses in 3 communities here on the Navajo Nation. It was Kudii, Shiprock, and Hogback. We were only able to do 25 inspections here on Navajo, but we didn't really know about it till when everything was really out of control, like late summer, and then the fall is when we made our response to this situation. Go ahead, next slide. So this our enforcement response here. So I guess when some of you are wondering why that wasp is up there, that's the pest that we're after. So So anyway, we got a briefing from our executive director at the time was Mr. Whaley, and he informed us that the president has made a decision to have Navajo Nation EPA participate or respond to the situation. So there were, I think, 5 of Navajo EPA media involved, including us, the pesticide program, which is FIFRA, then the Public Waters Systems Supervision, Criminal Enforcement Division from EPA, and then UST, Superfund, and Water Quality. So we made a response. So there we focused on those bullets to the right here. It says the use of correct use pesticide, but some of those we were not able to address. And the reason why is that number 1 says use for correct target pests and plant. At each and every one of these places that we inspect, the people that actually manage the farms, their pesticide applicators, handlers, have abandoned the farms because there was other like raids and whatnot, other agency responding to the situation. So we weren't really, we were unable to actually interview people that actually work with these pesticides in question. So we were only able to look into like what's on the label and what was there on site. So it was the storage and proper disposal and the worker protection. So we didn't have a chance to, even go as far as, check the protective equipment being utilized there. Go ahead. Here, the slide, here you see a picture in the center with red dots with line going from the pictures. If you can make out the pictures, those are like 1, 2, 3, 4 sites, aerial photos of, you can see those hoop houses there. Well, some of those hoop houses had like probably like 40 plus the most to 2 or 3 hoop houses. And then there were some under development at the time, which were just barely starting. So every day we would, there was a command center set up by the local police department there in Shiprock. There were other people there, emergency personnel on hand. So every morning we would have a briefing, kind of like give us updates. And we were given some water and whatnot, energy, food to, so we could make it throughout the day. And then at the end of the day, we were asked to share with any information, that we've seen, anything suspicious out there, photos, videos that we've taken, and we would provide those to the police. And next page. So this is a map of the 3 communities that I mentioned earlier. On the lower left right corner is the Hawkback community. So there was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 hemp farms, and then in the center is Shiprock community. It had like about 8 hoop houses, maybe more. 8 hemp farms. And then on the south side of the river, further down west, there's 2 farms there, actually 3. And then there was 4 on the other side of the river. That's still Shiprock community. So it stretches like for about a good 20 miles, this whole map. Go ahead. So I think most of you in here that are participating in this presentation, most of you know, probably, I'm assuming that, this is a cannabis plant. And yes, you can grow hemp, you has to be 0.3% THC for it to qualify as that. And on the other hand, there's marijuana. We'll get to that later. But anyway, the hemp, what we were told was the intent from the beginning was these were supposed to be used for, or I guess it was meant to, produce ropes, clothing, shoes, food, paper, bioplastic, insulations, and biofuel, oil, CDB, and other medicine that that's derived from this plant here. So that was our assumption, but later on it turned out to be another a cousin to this plant came to surface. So here we have picture. I just had these pictures from different sites to share with you. So the one on the left-hand side is in a greenhouse. They're in a pot with potting soil, and then there's construction of hoop houses there in the center, and then this is the field, the one that are grown outside. Go ahead, next slide. So after our briefing, and then what we were, informed of, we initiated our first hemp inspection. This was our program's very first hemp inspection, and we didn't know what to expect. When we got to the premises here, there was an entourage. We had the Navajo PD, EPA criminal enforcement, and then other medias, that are going to take part in this inspections. And there was a vehicle with out-of-state license plate going the other way out the gate. So it kind of like there was like some commotion there, a lot of activity. But upon arrival, there was like a bunch of people waiting for us. Not just a handful, but I don't know, maybe like 25 people. So I'm assuming there were farm workers or hemp farmers from another farm, supporters and whatnot. And when it came down to, to introduce ourselves and, to tell the people there, an individual stepped out in front of the crowd, and it turned out to be their attorney there. So we went through, our normal process of conducting inspections. We introduced ourselves, presented our credential, told them the reason why we're there, and he did sign the NOI, their attorney for the Fifa inspections. So I'm going to only speak about the Fifa inspection. So anyway, so we got started, and there was a lot of people there, and during our inspections, we were being mugged, by bystanders, supposedly supporters. But we had our own attorney there, with the other group of people. I guess they were wanting to get their paperwork signed and whatnot, and it was like he was off to the side. We went about our business. We did a little storage inspections, and we did what we need to do. We took photos, document samples, and the storage was some kind of like not it didn't meet what we expected, and so on. And there were some products there that had WPS labeling requirements. So there, I'm gonna jump to the product. So we looked at we did a label review and whatnot, and took notes and so on. We did a label review of all the products that were there. And when we were done, we were just about to move on to the hoop houses. There was like a commotion off to the side. There was people yelling at each other. There was like some people were having it out verbally over there. And at that time, the attorney hollered, "Okay, get out of here. This inspection is over." So we got booted out of there. As we were exiting, people were yelling at us, get the what out of there and so on. It was just really not it wasn't something that we expected or never experienced, but it was an experience for us, as our Fifa compliance inspectors. So that turned out, because of that, that's a denial of entry there, for what happened. But later on, we went back and finished our inspections there. We came an open inspection, and I guess after a week and a half later, we went back and finished that. And the attorney wasn't there. And then we continued with the other 24 inspections. Next slide. Here, this photo, on the right-hand side, you see a backpack applicator with some substance in there. It is unknown. We don't know what it is. There were like quite a few of these like this throughout the, our inspections, at other farms too. And I just wanted to use it as an example. That's an example of, I guess, a misuse and then a label violation. Where this whatever product is in there wasn't completely used for its intended purpose. It's just left out there, and there's a risk for environmental contamination and exposures to animal, even insects, and so on. So then the center, the middle, that's a container of a pesticide use product, a restricted use pesticide. A restricted use pesticide requires training and certifications in order to obtain these chemicals. But in this case, this container was used to store water for workers to use. I'd probably even drink and wash with. So I couldn't show the bar soap and other things down below because of the limited space on the slide here. So that was what it's for. So that's another violation there. And then to the right, the far right, this is one of the fields. There's a pesticide right there. It's an insecticide. That container was full of content, unbroken seal, but left out in the open in the hot sun. And the label did say that store in a cool, dry area. Do not freeze. So here it was boiling away, and then also out of the reach of children. So I just thought I'd share that with you. So it was a lot labeling violations for the two pictures there that I showed. And then here, this picture here, other illegal activities. There was a lot of littering and dumping, not only of pesticide containers, but beyond there, other things. There's a lot of trash filth. Here there's the San Juan River with you can see that pipe that goes behind that chair into the river. So I guess how it is, they hook up a high capacity pump, and they take water into this the middle picture where hoop houses are. They built a pond, a containment they use that to irrigate their, their marijuana or their hemp. So, which is an illegal take of resources without proper approval and permitting. And also from our counterparts, the water people from Navajo EP, they said that they even came across, wells illegally drilled and developed in the area, other places. And then some places they tap into existing water lines to get their water sources. And then another problem was the migrant workers. I feel really bad for them. Like I saw them trying to hitchhike, I don't know, wherever with their suitcases. They were just abandoned. A lot of them didn't, speak English or couldn't communicate with anybody. So that's what. So all these things took place, and some of them, got, got thrown in jail because they were, I guess, packaging marijuana for whoever actually owns the production of that. Then marijuana again. So there was other enforcement agencies involved. Just to name a few: BIA, law enforcement, drug enforcement, FBI, immigration, U.S. Marshal, I heard, was out there, even the sheriffs, county sheriff. So they had a hand in all this. And just, aside from getting kicked out of one of the inspections, we actually saw a scuffle at one of the farms. There was an arrest that took place. And then also we actually saw a witness testing conduct by one of the law enforcement agency, and turned purple, which meant positive for marijuana. And then we came across at one of the farms, we accidentally stumbled into a marijuana packaging shed here. That's the photo from there, right there. So we had a Navajo police with us, so he knew that police said, "Oh, this is marijuana." So just to, that's the special structure for marijuana there, I guess, to make them so they could produce superior quality marijuana. That's what we were told, So we have special LED lights in there. When we first entered this building here, this is not a greenhouse. This building was built like a house, but it had really heavy duty security locks on them. They used their bolt cutters and whatnot to open this up, and we looked in there. And then, of course, the photo to the right is inside one of the workers' sleep area, so under kitchen table, we saw that jar with marijuana. But there's a lot. What I'm sharing with you is just a pinch of what we experienced there, but, there's a link there that you can go to and, experience more, after the presentation. And for personal safety, every day there's uncertainty. We don't know what to expect. There was like commotions, I guess having to do with hemp farms around us. There was constant helicopter, above us. We didn't know what exactly it was doing up there, but I'm sure it was from one of the law enforcement agencies. And there was a scuffle that I informed you about, and then we went among, unmanaged pesticide and other chemicals in these hemp farms. There was sanitation issues, toilets, makeshift, and it's just a mess, flies out there, of course, there's potential to get exposed to the COVID. And at one place, there was a diesel engine with the truck frame cut. It was kind of like remodeled to where it generated power throughout the whole hemp farm. That very first picture I showed you, that's where that was at. And there were electrical lines on the ground, some going through puddles of water. So there was potential for, electrocution and whatnot. So those are the stuff that we experienced. And there was a nearby, chase of some farm worker that had firearm that pulled a gun on one of the growers' legal counsel that was trying to help him or something. So it just happened right next field over somewhere, and just told to, be careful, watch out. But we had our own law enforcement people with us. And then there's a picture here that look, one of the growers, legal or paralegal, was carrying that around. He told us, he walked in, do you know what this is? And I told him that I think that looks like some kind of a cartridge for a rodent control. Then I looked at it again. Yeah, I think you should just put that down and walk away. That looks like a pipe bomb. So we told the police that was nearby. He cleared out everybody. So they brought in, supposedly a bomb squad from the town of Farmington nearby. So the next day, we were told that was what it was, a pipe bomb. So during the whole inspections, this is what we came out with our potential violations. 1 denial of entry, storage disposal, 105 potential violation, WPS label products 28, and the WPS agricultural employer duty 24. And there was a total of 158 potential violations. Go ahead. So that is the end of my presentation. We'll answer questions later on. Here's my contact information.
Okay, so I'm going to switch over to, if I can find it here. Give me a second. Okay, so hopefully you can see my presentation. So after Navajo finished their, well, I've already introduced myself, so I can go on to the next slide. After Navajo finished their investigation, they referred 24 inspection reports to us, which has been the agreement sort of long-term. When Navajo's actionable inspection reports, they're referred to USEPA for action. I happen to be the Navajo liaison in the Enforcement and Compliance Assurance Division. So I took this case on. So it's a matter of receiving those reports, reviewing them, establishing that there are actionable violations. We request an attorney to be assigned so that we make sure that everything that we develop is legally defensible. And then you start case development. So under the Federal Insecticide, Fungicide, and Rodenticide Act, that's FIFRA, the first step we have to do is figure out who the violator is. So there are different types of violators, and this is a bit in the legal weeds, but I want to make sure and explain this because this determines what our action might end up being. So under FIFRA, we have these different categories of violators under civil enforcement. We have registrants, commercial applicators, and a few other different types under this one provision under number 1. Then we have a category called private applicator. And within that private applicator category, there's something that says other person. So in this particular case, because these hemp operations did not have commercial applicators doing the pesticide applications, they had employees, we assume, and as Jeff mentioned, all these people had kind of fled, and so it was really hard to figure out who was doing what. But because they had staff doing them, probably the workers, they fall into this other person category, which means that, if you have a registrant or commercial applicator, you can seek a penalty for the first time violation. If they fall into this number 2 private applicator category, the only thing we can do for the first time violation, if they don't have a compliance history, is a warning letter. So that is the situation that we're looking at. So as I mentioned, they fall into private applicator or other. We follow our statute, which is FIFRA, and we have a FIFRA enforcement response policy, which is a document the agency has come up with to ensure that when we apply enforcement actions, that we're applying them on a level playing field. So we can't be, it's to prevent us from being impartial and maybe enforcing more against one company that we don't like more than a company we like, that type of thing. So we follow through this enforcement response policy, and that kind of dictates either what the penalty might be or whether we result in a notice of warning. So it's important, you could think, well, why just do a warning letter, for such an egregious bunch of facts? But it's really important to establish this compliance history, because if this individual ever comes back and violates FIFRA on Navajo or anywhere else for that matter, the resulting action could be a penalty action. FIFRA kind of ramps up that response. So in FIFRA, the pesticide label is the law. That is what we enforce at EPA. We found that at all 24 farms, pesticide use was not in compliance with FIFRA. All the labels contain this statement that's shown on the slide, that it's a violation of federal law to use the product in a manner inconsistent with its label, basically to misuse the pesticide. So the following violations fall under that use inconsistent category. So here's one of the pictures that Jeff and Shyla took, and I think it's an interesting one because it shows pesticides sitting out, kind of just thrown out, and then there's actually an Arizona green tea bottle down there at the bottom, and I have no idea whether they were drinking that or using it to store pesticides or what, but it really does, as Jeff said, it looks like a big mess. So these violations for things like this are storage and disposal violations, because as Jeff mentioned, pesticide labels have storage and use directions. They have these statements such as I've put in the slide. They're supposed to be in a cool, dry place, or out of the reach of children, or locked up in a cabinet. You're supposed to keep them in the original container unless it's a product that's supposed to be diluted in sort of like a service container. But, none of that was being followed out here. Things were just kind of strewn about. So here's another one, which was shocking. Another few descriptions. So there's this bag of spilled, you can see the little pellets of the pesticide down there on the ground in the bottom of the picture, left out there near to storage water tanks in a field at the Donald Key Hemp Farm. There was also a gopher killer product with zinc phosphide, which is a pretty dangerous product, left behind a tree in the field, despite it requiring storage be inaccessible to children and pets. And as Jeff reports, there were livestock present on the farm as well. Another example, which really got to us, there were pesticides on a table where farm workers obviously ate. I mean, you can see there's sriracha sauce and Thai noodles and all sorts of things on this table, along with some pesticides just sitting there. And Jeff already mentioned that cinch container where they were reusing a pesticide container for wash water. All these things are storage and labeling violations. So another thing that we look at is some pesticides have an agricultural use box. And so under FIFRA, there's a set of regulations called the Worker Protection Standard. And so these particular parts of FIFRA are meant to protect agricultural workers. And so they have additional requirements that the applicator and the ag employer have to follow. And you can see what those things are in the box, and they may require other things on the label. So Jeff found all of these products that had this statement on the label at over 10 of the farms, and pesticides were moved between the farms. And when Jeff and Shyla asked the farm folks if they had any knowledge of Worker Protection Standard, the folks who responded had no idea what Jeff was talking about. So it's a problem because the WPS has specific requirements to do things like provide safety information to farm workers and handlers, to train the workers on how to be around the products when they're being used. There's certain duties that farm workers do that could expose them to pesticides, and all these things are covered under the Worker Protection Standard. I only included a few of the provisions on this slide, but there's a lot more to this that has to be undertaken by the ag employer. And so if the hemp farms had no idea that this even exists, they were not protecting their workers. So other things that Jeff mentioned, there was a denial of access. That's what we would consider it. It's a violation of FIFRA not to allow a properly credentialed inspector access to do an inspection. So we noted that the inspectors weren't able to interact with the folks that they should have been able to interview. And hemp itself is problematic. There were no products that were registered for use on hemp at the farms. We checked all the products. I think there were over 80 products that we ran through to make sure that they really were not registered for use on hemp. There is an EPA website that you can go to. There's a link in here that shows you all the products that are currently registered for use on hemp. So I think that is it for me. And so I'm going to stop sharing and then come back here. And I don't know, do we have questions? So it looks like we do have questions. Let's see. It looks like Lori asked Jeff, they were booting you off your own lands. Do you want to take that one?
I don't agree with that question, because there's law enforcement already doing investigations and whatnot. So that's just, we're still here on the land. People, what people don't understand is that there were farmers there that farm. A lot of them, were against what was going on from the get-go. This hemp farm and marijuana farm, started illegally with a lot of big financial backup. So kind of like just came into existence like overnight in a matter of a short period. from what I understand, is that there's a lot of the financial backings came from like big cities, and then also from overseas, people that are involved with the, I guess, global drug cartel.
Okay, let's
Yeah.
see. Was your initial inspection unannounced or announced in advance?
Yes and no. The program didn't announce going out there, but I think our executive director kind of like organized this in a way where we don't go out there by ourselves without no protection. And then there was other medias involved, like I said. So it's kind of like it was an entourage. But as time went on, things changed. The hostility just really tapered down, like within a matter of 1 week. So their security guard and whatever legal counsel, paralegal, and their farm manager, they just kind of like just opened up the gate for every farm we went to. But the disadvantage was that the people that actually managed those farms and used these products and whatnot, they were long gone. So, in the end, it was just like, like these people that I mentioned, they were signing the NOI in behalf of the farmers, because a lot of these people that agreed to the lease, the land permit holders, they were elderly people. Maybe they didn't really understand. Maybe they were given money, to easily just go along with whatever was going on. So, I mean, that was kind of like my hunch.
So I am not sure. The growers, Lori asked, the growers must know in advance you can't touch them, then no. I'm not sure what that question was in relation to. Maybe you can clarify that. In the meantime, Brenda asked, Jeff, does Navajo EPA have a pesticide control ordinance or tribal code that could be used to take FIFRA violation related actions?
The Navajo Nation does have that. So that was utilized. So this was kind of like a two-edged sword that was used, FIFRA and the Navajo pesticide own pesticide regulations. And those these investigations, everything were handed to DOJ, so we haven't really gotten an update where things are.
Okay.
But,
sorry, Jeff. Were you done, Jeff?
yeah.
Okay, so the clarification for that earlier question, EPA can't really touch them since they aren't professional applicators. Well, we can. We just have to go through our enforcement response policies. So for that category, we have to do a notice of warning, which is a formal action. And then the next time, if he violates again, then it can be a penalty action. So it's not that we can't touch them. It's just the type of response is different because of that category. And, as Jeff mentioned, there's a lot going on here. This is just the little tiny FIFRA civil administration piece of it. Now, when you look at the whole picture, there are all these other law enforcement agencies going after these folks. So there's a lot of criminal stuff involved that, Jeff and I don't get anywhere near. We just do our little piece of enforcing the pesticide label. So unfortunately, the first response for us is a notice of warning, but in the future, we can take a penalty. And I'll be honest, even the penalties are not huge in cases like this. So they may or may not be a deterrent. It's basically the way the law was set up. And, if we don't like it, we need somebody to change the law. So we do what we can. I mean, we have to follow what we're given. So Daniel said, I may have missed this, but what was the final outcome? Warning, penalty imposed, injunctive relief. So it was a notice of warning. We issued it to the gentleman's attorney. It was received. At this point, we're waiting to see whether this gentleman tries to come back to the Navajo Nation or violate the law somewhere else. But I believe, they're like I said, other federal agencies, DEA, FBI, all those folks are keeping an eye on this. There may be some other kind of bigger outcome. I'm not aware of what that final outcome is. I don't know if Jeff is, but that's where it's at right now. Is that correct, Jeff?
Yeah. Well, in the presentation, there's a link in there. It talks about law enforcement. Going on raids at these hoop houses and destroying marijuana and the hemp. They were both illegally, produced there. So it tells you more about how the guy went about it and all that. And there's a lot of articles on it. You do a search. So,
yeah, I mean, one thing we didn't mention is even if it had just been hemp, you have to go through USDA and get a permit to do a legal hemp grow. And so that did not occur either. So even if the marijuana issue had not been part of it, it still was not a proper grow because the gentleman did not seek this permit, as far as I understand. And Jeff, you can correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, he well, from what I heard, I guess he made an attempt but never really completed the process. And on top of that, the Navajo Nation Council, decided not to allow any kind of cannabis production.
Right.
Yeah. So this, like I said, what happened is, I think they went after the most vulnerable people, that the land permit holders on these farmlands. So I guess it was easy to manipulate those people. They offered them some, I don't know what, but So it seemed like every place we went, it's elderly couples or an elderly just person, involved, no younger person.
Okay. Well, we have 2 minutes left, so I don't know if there are any other questions, but it was an interesting investigation for sure. Okay, I am not seeing any other questions. Jeff, did you have anything else you wanted to say?
No, I think you covered, hit up on a lot of stuff that we wanted to, the main part. Well, like I said, go to those links and it'll take you to other links. Read up all about it. So, like I said, this is just a piece of the puzzle here.
Okay, and I'm going to put my email address in the chat, and you have Jeff's contact information on the presentation. If you have, let's see. So this scenario appears to stray from what Helene stated earlier about EPA and civil cases. Was this initiated under tribal or federal law? Well, we have 1 minute, but I'll try to answer that. So Jeff and Shyla conducted this under tribal authority. So I don't think it goes against what Helene was stating. And as far as the action that Region 9 took, we're going to take action if we're given actionable evidence, which in this case we did. So Region 9 was not out there. This was done by Navajo Nation EPA. We just took the enforcement action. So again, I don't think it contradicts too much what she said. So anyway. So I think we're at time. Again, feel free to contact us if you have any questions after this session. So Kurt, should we go ahead and stop broadcast.
Yeah, yeah, we are at a time, and let me just say too, if you want, there's the lounges, and there is a pesticide pest lounge, and you can drop any contact information in there if you want people to have it on the main page.
Okay, thank you. Thank you all for attending. And take care.